ancient land we now know as Cambodia. Once home to nearly 1 million people. At its heart, a temple larger than the largest European cathedrals. Angkor Wat has survived centuries of invasions and wars, retaining the status of the greatest Hindu temple in the world.
Hello and a warm welcome to this beautiful southeastern nation of Cambodia. We are at the world-renowned UNESCO heritage site of the Angkor Wat temple, an architectural marvel which was built on the basis of religious and political ideas being imported from India and then later getting adapted to the local conditions. Over the next 30 minutes, we take you on a journey of this ancient temple which is spread in an area of more than 200 hectares and has been at the centrality of India-Cambodia civilizational ties. About 300 kilometers from the Cambodian capital of Phnom Penh is the city of Siem Reap. And on the outskirts is the Angkor Wat complex with its stunning architectural jewel, the Great Angkor Wat Temple, a reminder of the golden age of Cambodia when the Khmer Empire was ruling the kingdom. Rising from the floodplains of Mekong River in central Cambodia, Angkor Wat is one of the most amazing engineering projects in the world. Not just for its size, but for what it's built on. That's water. Angkor Wat is surrounded by a 650 feet wide moat that encompasses a perimeter of more than 3 miles constructed with an aim to stabilize the temple's foundation, preventing groundwater from rising too high or falling too low. Some 20 miles to the south of Siem Reap, a seemingly inexhaustible supply of fresh water stretches across 16,000 square kilometers of Cambodia. This is the Tonle Sap, Southeast Asia's largest freshwater lake. The Khmer culture and the empire alike were built around this single critical source of water. Angkor Wat, once a Hindu temple, was built between 1113 and 1150 AD. The builder was a king named Suryavarman II, a usurper who came to power in his teenage years by killing his great-uncle Dharanendravarman I while he was riding an elephant. Suryavarman's bloodlust would continue into his rule. He launched attacks into Vietnam in an effort to gain control over the territory. He also made peaceful diplomatic advances, reopening relations with China.
Here is the all combination of the architectural elements. If you start from the pre-Angkorian period, that from 6th century, and then here all the elements of the Khmer art, especially the carvings, architectural elements, architectural beauties and aesthetics.
Suryavarman II venerated God Vishnu and installed a statue of the god in Angkor Wat's central tower. This devotion can also be seen in one of the most remarkable reliefs at Angkor Wat, located in the southeast of the temple. Angkor Wat's 213 feet tall central tower is surrounded by 4 smaller towers and a series of enclosure walls, a layout that recreates the image of Mount Meru, a legendary place in Hindu mythology that is said to lie beyond the Himalayas and be the home of the gods.
In Cambodia, we do have many attractions for visitors, such as the eco-tourism on the northeast, on the coastal zone, which is the seaside tourism, as well as in the city. But we noticed that the number of increase that was mainly attracted by Angkor. So what does this mean? It very simply means that the main product, the main tourism in Cambodia is a cultural tourism.
Angkor Wat's main entrance is to the west, across a stone causeway, with guardian lions marking the way. This perhaps is the only temple in the world having a west entrance. To the east of the temple is a second, more modest entrance. The heart of the temple is a central tower entered by way of a steep staircase, a statue of Vishnu at the top.
The central mountain here which you see is some sort of a Meru, and there are 4 mountains in the corner, and that creates some sort of a cosmic space. And in the terminology of India, Silpa Shastra terminology, it is called Panchayatan type of temple. And when you will go up, you will find that the main temple and other 4 temples, they are open to the 4 corners. They have 4 doors, means they are open to the whole cosmos. So that is some sort of representation of cosmology.
One of the reliefs shows a chapter in the Hindu story of creation known as the churning of the Sea of Milk, which describes how the Devas or the gods and the Asuras or the demons churned the ocean under the aegis of Lord Vishnu to produce the divine elixir of immortality. Suryavarman's devotion to Vishnu is also shown in the posthumous name he was given, that is Param Vishnu Loka, which means he who is in the supreme abode of Vishnu. Angkor was designed as a symbolic universe modelled on traditional Indian cosmology, whereby the temples were built in order to serve as a means whereby the Khmer kings could be assured of immortality by being closely identified with Lord Shiva or any other important deities of the realm. Building Angkor Wat was an enormous undertaking that involved quarrying, careful artistic work and lots of digging. To create the moat around the temple, 1.5 million cubic meters of sand and silt were moved, a task that would have required thousands of people working at one time. The buildings at Angkor Wat posed their own challenges. To support them, a tough material called laterite was used, which in turn was encased with a softer sandstone that was used for carving the reliefs. There are some portions of this temple which have lost their originality. For example, if you see this ceiling, it was originally made up of wood, but with time that wood came off and it was replaced by the cemented design plaster. But the remnants of the original structure you can see is in that small little block which has been left for the tourists to see what the original structure was. Although Angkor Wat is dedicated to Vishnu, the full purpose of the temple is still debated. One question is whether the ashes of Suryavarman II were interred in the monument, perhaps in the same chamber where the deposits were found. If that were the case, it would give the temple a funerary meaning.
There is only Angkor Wat which opens to the west. You are coming from the west. And why you are coming from the west? This is a problem of debate. Because most of the people feel that it is a funerary temple.
During his decades in power, Suryavarman the king reunited the empire. The vassals paid him tribute. He staged large military operations in the east. In addition to war, Suryavarman practiced diplomacy, resuming formal relations with China in 1116 AD. Suryavarman II is the first Khmer king to be depicted in art. A bas-relief in the south gallery of Angkor Wat shows him seated on an elaborate wooden dais whose legs and railings are carved to resemble the Naga snakes. On his head is a pointed diadem and his ears have pendants. He wears anklets, armlets and bracelets. His right hand holds what seems to be a small dead snake. Suryavarman's life finds a mention in the form of inscriptions and carvings all across the Angkor Wat temple. His image is part of a unique and detailed portrait of court life in the Angkor period. Further on in the gallery is a display of Suryavarman's military might. Commanders with armor and weapons stand atop fierce war elephants with ranks of foot soldiers below, each holding a spear and a shield. One of the commanders is the king himself, looking over his right shoulder. His chest covered with armor, a sharp weapon in his right hand.
After 8th century, we start Khmer, the Khmer artists or sculpture start to convert what is the origins, elements of Indian civilization, convert it into the real typical Khmer expression of art expression or expression of architectures.
Inscriptional evidence suggests that Suryavarman II died between 1145 and 1150 AD. Possibly during a military campaign against Champa. He was succeeded by Dharanendravarman II, a cousin, son of the brother of the king's mother. A peak of weak rule and feuding began. Between the 12th and the 15th century, Cambodia has had an alternating religious pattern between Hinduism and Buddhism with a change in the dynasties and the empires. In the 16th century, the kingdom of Ong Chandri Chi shifted his political capital from Angkor Wat to Phnom Penh. It is then that this temple complex of Angkor Wat became desolate, it got abandoned, it was taken over by the French colonizers, and finally it was taken over by the Buddhist monks. So it is the 16th century that marked the oncoming of Buddhism. Towards the end of the 12th century, Angkor Wat gradually transformed from a Hindu center of worship to Buddhism, which continues to the present day. One look around the massive Angkor Wat temple would show the presence of a number of Buddhist monasteries with tourists mostly from Sri Lanka, China, Korea and Japan.
បើយើងនិយាយទៅដើម្បីយើងធ្វើវត្តនេះដើម្បីឲ្យខ្ញុំញាតិពុទ្ធបរិស័ទខ្មែរយើងនេះមកគោរពបូជាហើយក្នុងវត្តអារាមមួយនេះក្នុងនិយាយទៅក្នុងប្រាសាទមួយគេបង្កើតវត្តដើម្បីឲ្យវាអ៊ូអរខ្ញុំមិនឲ្យវាស្ងាត់ខ្ញុំ
Angkor Wat gradually became lost to the world for centuries but then was again rediscovered by the West in 1860 by French Protestant naturalist Henry Mouhot, who became its great publicist and created a vogue for Cambodia and for Angkor in particular. Writers and aristocratic travellers like Somerset Maugham and the eccentric Sitwells travelled to Angkor in the 1930s, 40s and 50s. Maugham thought that everyone should see Angkor once before they die.
These temples were part of a larger culture that prevailed in the region. That's important. And I understand that from Luang Prabang and North Laos to Vientiane, and from here to Wat Phu and further to Angkor, it was one big trail, a pilgrim's trail, which was called the Grand Angkor Road or the Khmer Road. And pilgrims actually traversed all these paths, and on the way there were many other temples which they visited, which is typically Indian in mindset and tradition.
I like this temple is old Asian structures, and the first time to come here, and I get a high impression about the old Asian structure of this temple, and I would like this place would come again, because one time is not enough. Should become more times, and all over to see the whole temple.
Cambodia is one of the very few countries in the world which uses a picture of a building, that's Angkor Wat Temple, on its national flag. Therefore, temples are a symbol of national importance and their restoration and conservation is of paramount importance. India and Cambodia have signed memoranda of understanding under which India has restored and conserved temples like Ta Prohm and Angkor Wat. Not only this, the Archaeological Survey of India officials have also provided technical advice and expertise to the preservation officials in Cambodia. Angkor Wat required considerable restoration in the 20th century, mainly the removal of accumulated earth and vegetation. Work was interrupted by the civil war and Khmer Rouge control of the country during the 1970s and 1980s. But relatively little damage was done during this period other than the theft and destruction of mostly the post-Angkorian statues. Angkor being a major site exemplifying cultural, religious and symbolic values as well as containing high architectural, archaeological and artistic significance prompted authorities like École Française d'Extrême Orient, that is EFEO, the Archaeological Survey of India, the Polish conservation body, that is PKZ, and the World Monuments Fund to carry out conservation and restoration works between 1907 and 1992. But it had no significant impact. The monument even entered the World Endangered List of monuments due to pillaging, illegal excavations and even dotted with landmines. Angkor was finally named a World Heritage Site in 1992, after which UNESCO launched a major campaign to restore and safeguard Angkor with the help of the Apsara Authority and the Royal Cambodian government. UNESCO continues to be a part of Angkor's future, working with the Cambodian authorities to ensure the tourism access and development do not compromise this great cultural treasure. Around the Angkor Park and the temple area, you would find many shops run by ancestral families having links with the Khmer Empire.
In 1992, Angkor has been inscribed into the UNESCO based on the demand from the Royal Government of Cambodia, who actually initiated by our King Father, who actually proposed to list Angkor into the UNESCO Heritage Site. But at that time, due to the conditions of the country as well as some lacks of legislations and authorities, Angkor was listed in the list in danger.
The breakfast, so the morning around 5 o'clock, so many people that come here waiting for the sunrise. So when after sunrise around 6:20. Sometimes it's a good business because sometimes a little bit business because so many people that work that same store here.
If I work for the tour guide, for English guy I get $30 a day, and for German guy is $40 a day.
Cambodia is predominantly a Buddhist state but retains strong influence of Hindu rituals. Since the 1st century AD, Hindu and Buddhist religious and cultural influences have emanated out of India to various parts of Southeast Asia. Therefore, India has a strong civilizational and cultural connection. The pervading influence of Hinduism, Buddhism and Indian architecture are borne out by the magnificent structures at Angkor Wat, Angkor Thom, Bayon, Ta Prohm and other religious and historical sites in Cambodia.
The kings of Angkor, as you know, were all Hindu kings. And between the merchants and the kings, there transpired a lot of cooperation. And Angkor Wat, that's why it was built over 500 years by generations of people, inspired by ancient India and wanting to retain that connection with the homeland. And the Samudra Manthan figure you see in Angkor Wat is the largest sculpture of that sort anywhere in the world. At some point, all these temples became Buddhist sanctuaries and Buddhism became the religion in these parts. Nevertheless, as we all know, the Lord Buddha himself was from India.
India agreed to carry on the restoration work of the Angkor Wat temple on the appeal of the Cambodian government at a cost of $4 million on a grant basis. The first phase of the restoration work is over. One look at this slide would show what Angkor Wat looked like earlier and what it looks now.
In Angkor Wat, we restored several parts like moat, esplanade, and Samudra Manthan gallery. Actually, earlier they were settled, and their plinth was totally disturbed. So the structure was crumbling That's why we restored that and gave to Cambodia.
Not only Angkor Wat, but there are a number of other temples in the restoration process. Apart from India, there are several countries like Japan, Korea, China, which are contributing towards making a cultural and civilizational imprint on Cambodia.
ICC in partnership with Apsara Authority, and it is a very collective work, a teamwork from the very top level expert of from the ICC, different experts from different countries. You see, they always send their best expert. You see, like France, Japan, Italian, and all the American, Chinese.
The Indian leadership, irrespective of which government has been in power, has laid special emphasis on reinforcing the cultural ties between India and Cambodia. Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari's September visit to the world's biggest Hindu temple complex of Angkor Wat has been seen as a reflection of the shared heritage between the two countries.
We share the common heritage of Buddhism and the philosophy of compassion, tolerance, and non-violence. Our shared legacy is reflected in the religious and cultural ties that bind us. Hinduism and Buddhism spread out across Asia from India. The structures at Angkor Wat, Angkor Thom, Bayon, and other historical sites bear testimony to the flourishing exchanges and cultural synthesis between our people.
Vice President also emphasized the strong need to develop the economic ties because of the strong tourism connect with the Angkor Wat temple.
India has a very clear-cut view on Southeast Asia. We want to develop comprehensive relationship based on satisfaction of each other's requirements. What is the requirement? Requirement is peace, stability, development.
There have been reports that a private trust in Bihar is planning to build a replica of the Angkor Wat temple. Vice President Hamid Ansari's visit to Cambodia allayed these fears, but Angkor Wat is not facing just this challenge. A plethora of new hotels cashing in on the country's near exponential rise in tourist numbers is sapping gallons of water from beneath nearby urban areas. They say this could upset the delicate foundations on which Angkor Wat sits and could lead to parts of it, including its famous celestial Apsara or carved nymphs, taking an unheavenly tumble to the earth. Through a drape of evening haze, the ancient Cambodian superstructure sees another batch of tourists process across its moat and marvel at its grandeur. Local teenagers waggle cool drinks in the faces of passers-by, and auto rickshaws or tuk-tuk drivers loudly vie for business. It looks like what it is, a boom town. But how can the grandeur and marvel of this religious ruin be maintained is the big question. City of Siem Reap is a perfect example of how intangible culture and heritage can be enriched for the sustainable development of tourism and economy of a country. Except for the language and perhaps the food, everything is so Indian about this part of the country that you never feel you're away from India. What better example of a cultural amalgamation than this? That's all we could pack up in this part of our journey. Goodbye and thanks for watching.